Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to another round of My Patriot Report Live. I am Ratwan Hill, and that is Mr. Walter Cotton the third. Mr. Cotton, man, how you doing today?
I am well. I am well. Thanks for asking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to start this. I'm seeing a lot of talks now about the economy, and now it's starting to seem like more and more and more people are talking about the economic collapse that is seeming to be on the verge, but it seems like the administration thinks we're in the best times that we could ever be in America. From what you've seen and with your background in accounting and forensic analysis accounting, I believe. What from your perspective, what are you seeing in this economy?
Well, you asked that question from the right point of view. You asked what my perspective was. And my perspective is one of an individual who is relatively well heeled. So I have the economic insulation, if you will, to withstand, economic shenanigans. But a person that's coming from a financial perspective that is well south of mine is seeing the economy, is seeing the changes in the economy from a dynamically different point of view. And what I have had the luxury over my lifetime, I guess because of my accounting training, my auditing background, is to have the ability to have empathy for people that are in financial situations that are different from mine. And so the truth of the matter is, if you're coming at it from the perspective of a middle to lower income threshold, the economic situation right now is dire, right? It's dire, right? The things that I take for granted that have doubled in price that I can stand to pay without any concern or issue is the difference between giving your child a nutritious lunch or not in some of the households that I'm talking about. It's the difference between, trying to decide which days you drive to work and which days you take public transportation. And so the economic condition in the nation right now is extremely challenged for the masses, right? Which is the majority of the people that make up the tier of the economy that is south of where I happen to sit. And quite candidly, I'm concerned about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I know that if you look at history, when we get into these situations where it's an economic collapse or a recession or depression, whatever they want to coin it, they seem to point to a war that creates money, and then now we're seeing things going on with Venezuela. And my question is not to be political, but it seems like I'll just say it. It seemed like an entry point for them to get oil because Venezuela has a very, very large oil reserve. And with the economy being in the state that is in, it just seems like it's lining up to be a situation, a war, a potential war that could be created off of that conflict. But that's going to present opportunities for government contracts because when there's wars, they're always going to, we're going to need missiles. We're going to need all these types of capabilities that support the war. So from your perspective, what are your thoughts on the opportunity that may present?
Well, it is true that historically the easy way out of economic recession and downturn that the government has chosen has been the military path because the military and the monetary get together whenever it's necessary. War in the desert sure did seem necessary, to quote the urban philosopher Gil Scott Heron. But in this particular instance, all contracts aren't good contracts. All opportunities aren't good opportunities, and there are opportunities that can be secured from a more benign, a more peaceful path that would be preferred, in my humble opinion. But my point of view, or my perspective as it relates to the circumstance in Venezuela, is that we need to urge the American people to study themselves approved, to really understand what our interest in that Venezuelan situation is, because we're being told that there is no economic interest, right? The interest is a national security interest, right? The interest is to stop the drug lords from bringing narcotics into the country that are killing Americans. But just a little research and study will show you that the Venezuelans are not in the fentanyl business. And as a matter of fact, the Venezuelans haven't been in the fentanyl business at all. If you do your research, you will see that the Chinese actually got out of the fentanyl business in 2019. That was a national policy that is backed up by evidence that you can get from Customs and Border Patrol in terms of the reduction in fentanyl seizures. So where is this fentanyl coming from? Well, the conventional wisdom suggests that India might be the likely target, because they had the scientists and the production facility to take over that very, very lucrative position that the Chinese abandoned. And so when you look at the situation in Venezuela versus what we're being fed by the popular media, that we are, on this terrorist reduction effort, it doesn't necessarily pan out when you look at the evidence. So we are definitely in that incursion, if you will, for reasons other than the narco terrorists that we are supposed to be chasing. And with the rich economic position that Venezuela has, I think that there may be an economic motivation to why we're doing that. And we, as the American people, can't back actions that don't represent us on the national stage in a way that is appropriate, because that puts us in harm's way, right? It causes other people, other communities to see us in a light that's unfavorable. And I think that that's one of the things that we, the people, need to take an inventory of as we pass into 2026. How do we want to be represented on a world stage? How do we want our brand to be known?
And that's a good point. With the disruptions in 8A, is this even ideal time to even go through that right now? If is all these disruptions within 8A, 4,300 companies that got the SBA audit letter, the Department of Treasury issuing an audit saying that they're going to audit all the socioeconomic statuses, so that's gearing up. This probably wouldn't be the best ideal time, because we would potentially be a little bit vulnerable in this instance.
When you say we, who is the we that you're talking about that would be vulnerable?
The nation.
So I think that what you're asking is, is this a good time to be looking at government contracting with all of the disruptions around the 8A program? Is that the question that you're asking?
Well, no, what I'm asking in regards to, a potential conflict over a potential conflict happening. this disruption in the audit and this disruption in the small business program could potentially make us vulnerable, make us a little bit vulnerable. That's what I'm saying, in our supply
I
chain.
understand the question that you're asking, and yes is the answer to the question. And what you're specifically asking is, are all of these disruptions that we're seeing in the procurement process, whether it be the disenfranchisement of the small disadvantaged business as a result of the 8A or Rothy decision, or whether it be the decision to centralize contracts under the federal government's acquisition authority, right? The GSA, all of those actions reduce, or should I say, it makes our small business base vulnerable, right? Because we're looking at, on a national level, the Walmart effect, right? When Walmart moved into a neighborhood, all of the local mom and pops were affected by that centralization. In this particular instance, same thing, right? As we centralize contracts, the small businesses that used to feed on those distributed contracts go out of business because now the big boys are eating on them. And if we have a supply chain that is porous, as we have a event, as we have a need to mobilize to defend ourselves against an attack or a provocation that we initiate, our industrial base will be in a position where it's too big to manage. The profiteers will gouge us like we had as we enjoyed the run up to World War II, and the nation is going to have a greater difficulty reacting to the war footing, reacting to the provocation from another country. And on a geopolitical scale, on a national war footing, that might be all our adversary needs. That might be all the advantage they need in order to get the advantage on the US. They just may need us to flinch that 1 second, and Pearl Harbor turns into Americans in concentration camps, right? All they may need in this season is that little flinch by the American economic environment, and we're speaking another core language in this country. And so, yeah, I see this economic challenge that's resulting from the disruption in our acquisition system as a serious matter. And I've been sounding the alarm on it, and will continue to do so until somebody pays attention.
Yes, sir. With that in mind, you being an individual who is always known of being proactive, not reactive, with your legacy, over 20 years, over $19 billion in federal contracts for the service disabled veteran-owned small business community. What should be, from your grandmaster thinkings, what's the proactive route in this situation? Like, if we see something like this potentially occurring, what's the proactive move that we need to do to make sure that, as disabled veterans, as individuals who served, what is the proactive thing we should be doing in this regards?
Well, the smart economic thing that you should be doing if you are a veteran or a disabled veteran that enjoys the benefit that this great nation is giving you and the advantage that it's providing you from a procurement perspective, the smart thing to do would be to take full advantage of it, right? Because there are trillions of dollars. We've identified 1.3 trillion that's transferring right now, and you have the rights, you have the ability, because of some settled law, to make a demand call against any portion of that 1.3 trillion dollars and compel them to award it to you. So the smart thing you should be doing is putting on your veteranpreneur suit. You should be putting on your veteranpreneur outfit, identifying where you fit into this stream of need that the government has, this stream of need that we have for reshoring manufacturing, right? Revitalizing our supply chain, and make sure that you carve out a portion of generational wealth for your family during this change, right? I'm suggesting that as the smart thing to do. Proactively, what you could be doing is studying yourself approved, right? Learning the systems and procedures that you would need to employ against that kind of a market opportunity. So again, very simply put, if you are a veteran or a disabled veteran, I'm understanding what my rights are under the current acquisition rules and regulations. And the reason that I'm understanding or seeking to understand those is because as I look out at the rest of the acquisition landscape, I'm seeing all of the other players get disturbed. I'm seeing the minority businesses, the small disadvantaged businesses get pushed to the sideline. I'm seeing the 8A businesses being put under audit scrutiny and pressure because of a fraud, waste, and abuse concern. And I'm seeing the woman-owned small business program finally get the scrutiny that it's deserved over, decades because, it's not her construction firm, right? It never was her construction firm, and everybody knew it, right? So I'm looking out at that, change that's occurring in the theater, and I'm seeing that the disabled veterans are not being disturbed. All of those other preference categories are being disturbed, but the disabled veterans are not. So that's suggesting to me that maybe I'm being given this advantage for a reason. And I'm going to go and explore that. I'm going to investigate that to the nth possible degree, because if the hallucination that the bald guy is sharing with you is correct, that America wants you to be rich, there is a wealth transfer that's got your name on it, and you don't want to be on the other side of this going, gosh, I wish I'd listened to Mr. Cott.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So when you say they need to, study they self-approve, look at the regulations, I've talked to individuals and CEOs who say things like, well, if the administration not following, the Constitution or not following the laws, what chance do we got? What would you say to them?
I would say you have to recognize that we live in a constitutional republic that is supported by a democratic process for electing the officials and administration that deliver our policies. So if we don't like what we have, hold my beer, we can change it. And in this season, we have a midterm election that's coming up in 2026. Mm-hmm. So all we got to do is identify the diet that the people that we want to do things normally consume and deliver it to them. And in this instance, the diet is votes. Our politicians need votes in order to stay in office. The current party that's in office is looking to maintain their majority. The party that's out of office wants to get in office. And our position is we will support him and her who support those who discharge their service and duty to this nation.
Mr. Cotton, you have such a deep knowledge when it comes to how it works from Congress side, the government relations side, from the contracting side to how the contracting officers thinking or what they need. Could you give us a little bit background? We talked about it briefly before about your upbringing, But I remember you told me about you being invited to the White House, and I just wanted to share that story with the audience because we have such a close relationship. Because I think it gives people some insight on your pedigree and your background. It was it. I don't want to misspeak. Was it the Bush administration or was it the Obama administration?
Well, it was actually the Obama administration that was in office when I had the luxury, I had the blessing of working with Senator Landrieu and Senator Olympia Snowe, who were crafting the Obama administration's seminal jobs creation legislation. So I think that what you're referring to is when I was invited to make a contribution to the contracting section of that legislation. But long story short, I have a storied career, right, of working in the cigar smoke-filled room on legislation that has actually moved the needle for veterans, and that uh, entry, that access has taught me a whole lot about the civic process. I mean, when I was younger, I was probably my political knowledge was at the level of the average American, and that's at the level of Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill trying to become a law. Some of you guys may remember that Schoolhouse Rock. That was the breadth of my civic knowledge. But being involved in the process of helping the disabled veteran business community move the needle in contracting and reshaping some of the programs like parity in contracting so that the playing field could be level for disabled veterans, or working through the Kingdomware lawsuit where we had to fight the VA, right, all the way up to the Supreme Court to make sure the Rule of Two was available for veterans within VA. Those requirements forced me to be exposed to the civic process. It forced me to work with our lawmakers. It forced me to negotiate with our agency leaders. And you can't do that without an understanding of it. And so I'm now sitting on a body of knowledge as it relates to contracting and the political process. I like to tell people who will listen that I'm the Rosie Perez of government contracting. If you guys ever saw that movie, White Men Can't Jump, there was a scene in there where Rosie was preparing for Jeopardy, and she said, I have more, useless information in this brain about more topics than any one person should have. And in my instance, I would tell you that I have more material information about small business contracting as it relates to veterans and disabled veterans than any one individual should have. And I think that knowledge base is going to pay dividends for our veteran community in this season, because it's my hallucination that this 8A audit pressure is going to kick out a lot of contracts out of that 8A program. And those contracts are potentially going to be available to disabled veterans because of some actions out of the recent FAR rewrite. But I'm leaning a little bit further over the skis than I think you wanted me to in this answer. So I'm going to stop right there.
No, that's perfect, because the next question I had was what mindset shift do vets need to make the move from accessing programs to controlling the outcomes?
So maybe give me a little bit of more granular understanding of what the question is you're asking.
Yes. What's the mindset that veterans need to do to take control of this season in all these shifts?
Well, they need to take the mindset of the leader, of the prime contractor, right? They need to take the mindset of being the innovator that puts themselves in the position to control their own destiny. And this is an important consideration. So turn everything around you down and pay close attention to what I'm about to say if you're a veteran or a disabled veteran. Because in this season, there is a pathway that you can use to become a bigger small business that empowers you to be able to prime contracts right out of the gate. That means you don't have to wait on permission for someone up high in order to get your first 20, your first $100 million contract. You can acquire those kinds of opportunities right out of the gate. And I'm not talking to you about something that I believe. I'm talking to you about something that I've done. And I'm talking to you about something that I'm in the process of doing right now. Should we reveal? Should we? Well, I'm not going to. All I'm going to tell you is there is a contract in Huntsville, Alabama. I think it's called NDAA Shield. It's $155 billion contract. We've got a bigger service disabled veteran action that we're delivering against that contract. And what that service disabled veteran is doing, you should be doing right now too. Yeah. We'll tell them about that later, right? Let's tell them about it later.
Yeah, no, that was a good seed to sow. You took on the role in this season. You took on the role as the president of the Elite SDVOSB New York chapter. Can you tell me how this fits into the equation as the force multiplier?
Yeah, I can because I know the VSO community intimately, right? I've worked with all of the leading VSOs. I've been a part of them. I was the core of the group that created the Small Business Task Force over at the American Legion, VSO that I still remain a member of. The Disabled Veterans of America, all of the major VSOs I know intimately and personally. I also know that there's only one VSO that was created with the mission of veteran business, and that's the Elite Service Disabled Veteran Network. It's not the Elite Service Disabled Veteran Owned Small Business Network. It's the Elite Service Disabled Veteran Owned Business Network. Well, over time, we had so much success that people graduated out of the program. They graduated out of the VSO, and they've gone on to do other things, and that VSO lost membership. And so what I'm going through the process of doing is taking my friend Bob Mull's dream, which was to have the Elite Service Disabled Veteran Network be a pathway that transitioning veterans could use to create wealth for their family. I'm going through the process of revitalizing that network, and I'm starting in New York. I'm starting with the state of New York because that's the state that I know and I grew up with. And I think Frank Sinatra said it best when he said, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And I'm going to expand the systems, strategies, and procedures that I create here in New York nationwide. And I'm starting with a $50 billion, let me say that again, a $50 billion outcome that we are producing and delivering in 2026. So if you are a state that wants to duplicate what we're doing in New York, holla at your boy. We'll share happily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to go back. This popped up in my mind as you were saying that to something you said earlier about the way we're doing contracting in this season. What would you say to those other than small businesses that are, or any business in this season that's doing contracting the same typical way that, just through my experience, it's a lot of renovets, what we call it. They want to do a teaming agreement, or they may want to subcontract with you for, they're not a service disabled veteran, no veteran status, but they want to subcontract with a veteran for a VA contract. Could you tell me what's your thoughts on the old contracting paradigm to where we are now?
Yeah, well, the old contracting paradigm, especially as it related to small business, was always transactional and exploitative, right? I need you in order to put my score high enough for me to win this particular contract. And then after I win the contract, you become of less importance to me. That was the old bait and switch game that was played back in the day. I will use you to win, and then I'll go and shop the portion of the contract that you gave me price for to somebody who will give me the same stuff for less, right? The bottom line is that there's a new energy, there's a new cultural mindset that's growing up in America.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of necessity. It's because of where we find ourselves at. And that cultural mindset is not resting on the cowboy jockey transactional mindset, right? Which is whatever is necessary, right? Whatever works. It's based on a strategic mindset, right? What's the long-term time horizon view we can take to polishing that shiny city on the hill, right? To putting America back into the kind of status that we once enjoyed on a world stage where, that label made in America meant something. So the other than small businesses or just businesses in general can buy into the idea that we need to think long term. We need to start thinking from something other than a strategic mindset. And if we do that, right, what's convenient, right, what feels good in the moment will give way to what's in the best interest of the nation. What's coming at it from the utilitarian perspective is what will occur.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Guys, and if you have, any questions, like if you could ask a question to one of the nation's leading subject matter experts in this federal contracting landscape, I need y'all to drop some comments and questions on anything that you have in regarding the federal contracting or anything, because right now we're giving you this is an access point to a wellspring of knowledge, and just from experience, just going through the battles, you have the opportunity to ask the questions. So we ask the audience to be engaging, drop some comments, drop some questions, and we could get that answered for you. But we're gonna put a
can I interject something there, Ratuan? Because I've always only spoken to the audience of one. And I'm talking to you out there. You know I'm talking to you. You've been praying for someone like me to show up on your doorstep to change your life forever. Listen to what the young man's saying, right? If you got a question that's burning in your mind that no one's answering for you, drop a line, put it in the comment so that we can get it answered for you, because the only dumb question is the one that you refuse to ask. And I'll just leave that at
that. Absolutely. This has been another segment of My Patriot Report Live. I am Ratuan Hill, and that is the nation's leading subject matter expert in federal contracting, Mr. Walter Cotton III. Until next time, guys, we're out.